Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to everyone who's registered for today's webinar. So this is a live webinar today, so it's a special occasion for the Inventory Hive team. So so thanks to everyone who's registered. The plan was for myself to do this on my own, but Richard caught wind of this webinar and he wanted to join in. So for those that don't know me, I'm Mitch from Inventory Hive. I'm the marketing manager here, and you might have seen me on various training videos, etc., throughout on YouTube and on the platform, and when you have demos with the team. And I'll leave it to Rich to introduce himself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rich. I'm the founder at Hive, and yeah, I like to get involved in these webinars from time to time, particularly as we've got a plan ahead to spend a lot more time with existing users, work with them, listen to ideas for improvement, as well as make sure that the sort of ongoing customer success is considered. So we've got lots of plans ahead over the next few months for that, and hence me joining.
Yep, nice stuff. We'll cover off various topics today about how you guys can speed up your property inspection reports with Inventory Hive. So this is designed for our existing users, so we don't think there's any new or potential customers on today's webinar. It's designed for existing users today, and we're just going to cover off some tips that you might not be using when you're creating the report, so you can hopefully speed up your time and put them into practice effectively. If you do have any questions, on the right hand side there's like a questions panel, so you can pop some questions in there. We might have a look at these towards the end if we get time. We might cover them off already as we go through today's webinar. We have got an hour slot today, but I'm sure that will run through very quickly. So do pop some questions in there and I will have a look at those for you guys. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen and we'll get started. So one of the first things that I wanted to cover off today is basically obviously using the app in offline mode. So the first thing I want to say first is, obviously, I know 90% of our users have downloaded the Inventory Hive app, but some users might not have downloaded the app. They might be trying to use the app, I'm going to say app in inverted commas, on the browser version on the phone when there's actually an app specifically designed for users. So what I'd strongly recommend is to go to your Apple App Store or your Android Google Play Store, and if you search Inventory Hive, you'll see the Inventory Hive app, and then once you download that, you'll be able to gain access to your reports and create reports through the app. So the app's designed specifically for at the property for creating your reports. I know some people have used the browser version, some of the features don't particularly show on the browser compared to the app. So make sure you use the Inventory Hive app, and it's the same login details that we use on the desktop site that I've got here and the app. So you've got no problem logging into that as well. One of the key things that we come across on our support when support tickets are raised from us, or I speak to people at exhibitions, is that they would say that the app performs slowly. And one of the main reasons behind that is that you might not be using the app in offline mode. So for those that aren't quite sure what offline mode means, so you're effectively cutting the signal from the app to the cloud-based server. So if you're using the app in online mode and you're going to a property to do a report, it's constantly relying on a network signal. So the best way I can describe it is, say, if you're on the underground, on the London Tube, for example, and you're trying to browse the internet, then obviously it won't work and it performs very, very slowly. Whereas if you put the app in offline mode, you're cutting the signal from the app to the cloud-based servers, and you can use the app absolutely fine without the use of a signal, essentially. When I speak to people at exhibitions, they say that some of the properties that they manage are out in the sticks and there's no signal. So make sure you put the app in offline mode before you travel to the property to conduct your report. So to put the app in offline mode, you just hit the three lines in the top right hand corner of the app, and the first thing you need to check is your sync settings. So without overcomplicating things, sync settings are effectively selecting what data you want to pull across in offline mode on the app. So there's no point syncing everything, so syncing all of your properties or all of your reports. you might only want to select a certain amount of reports you want to view in offline mode. So, for example, if you're going out of the office today to do some inspections and you've got 3 or 4 inspections to do today, you might only want to view those relevant inspections in offline mode. So the recommended sync settings are the last 7 days. So that will pull across sync settings or reports that have been created in the last 7 days in offline mode. But you can also sync on your report, so any reports that have been assigned to you specifically, or you can customize them. You can sync everything, like I said, but it's not particularly recommended because there's no point pulling across all of the data. So you can just choose selective sync, use the last 7 days, you can customize it, or your reports as well. So you can have a look at those. You hit the sync and save button, and once that's done, you can put the app in offline mode. So like I said, you can customize your sync settings here, as I've selected here, with relevant branches. Once you've selected your sync settings, you just swipe down just to make sure that gets updated, and then you can put the app in offline mode. So to put the app in offline mode, again, hit the 3 lines in the top right hand corner, hit the go offline button, and it puts the app in offline mode. So do that before you go to the go to the property. So make sure you're in the office, you've got a strong Wi-Fi signal, and as you can see here, there's a red banner across the top. There's a couple of properties pulled across in offline mode, and I know I need to go and inspect those today.
So just to chip in on that as well, Mitch.
Yeah.
I suppose the reason why we decided to start with the sync settings at the start of this webinar today is that we know some users are up to speed with using the app in an offline state, but it can be a mixed bag sometimes. Sometimes users will go out and say, well, I do have a good signal in the property that I'm working in, and therefore I'm going to stay in offline mode. But you will have a much slower experience because obviously every time you take a photo, it's going to try and send that to the cloud-based servers. So it will naturally slow you down. If you've taken 8 quick-fire photos in a room or of an item, and then you go save the next item, it's going to send those up. So it will slow you down. The app is designed to work in an offline state, and it is the best way to use it. It also, for example, if you're connecting to a 360 camera, you need to be in an offline state anyway, because you have to create a connection with the camera, which of course means you're not connected to the cloud. So it is always the best way to use the app. And of course, when you hit that go offline button, it will check the cloud to see if there's any properties or information on your account that needs to go down to your device, so that when you do go offline, you know that it is in sync with what's in the cloud until you then go and do your report and then sync that data back up. So it is the best way to use the app. Even if you feel that you do have a good signal when you're out in the field, we strongly recommend working offline at all times when you're out. I mean, sometimes it could be that you're in the office, you've got Wi-Fi, and then you decide to go offline before you leave the office, maybe if you don't have a SIM card in the device. Equally, you can be at a property if you've got a signal and then go offline. If you've got 4G on your phone and there's a good connection, when you're there at the property, you can then go offline, because of course you'll just use your mobile data to go offline. So depending on where, on the connection that you have on that device, depends on when is the best time to sync and go offline. But we always recommend doing it to make sure the app works as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. Nice stuff. The next thing I plan on coming on to today is property templates. So it's another key thing that we come across when we're doing account reviews, etc. And some of our users have said, oh, it takes ages to populate descriptions in reports, etc. So when adding properties on your account, so if I hit the plus icon here, you can choose a property template. Sorry, one button. You can choose a property template which best reflects that property. So for example, here we provide some off-the-shelf templates. So if you know the property you're setting up today is unfurnished in a good condition, then you can choose that template. If it's furnished in a good condition, you can choose that template as well. And the thing about that is then, if it is furnished, it already populates furniture items in that report ready and a description as well. So it saves you populating those in and typing those descriptions in. So you kind of would rather have all that information in the report ready and then simply delete it out if it's not applicable. Some
Mhm.
users have selected a blank template, which obviously, if you do that, then you'll literally get a blank report. So I've set up a property here with a blank template here. And if I preview that report, you'll clearly see that all the descriptions in that report are completely blank. So you've got to
Mhm.
manually type everything in every single item and room. Whereas if you set up a property with a template, like this example here, and I just preview it quickly, all the items have already populated in and the description, and those descriptions are relevant to that item as well. Say, for example, the radiator in the entrance hallway, wall mounted radiators free of marks and scuffs, all valves present and intact. So it's not over the top, these descriptions. I know you'll probably come onto this in a second, Mitch, about not going
Mhm.
over the top of the descriptions, but my number one tip as well is to make sure you choose a template which reflects the property, and it will pre-populate these descriptions in ready. So this is a normal template. I've not done any work to this report at all, and it already looks like it's taken like 3 hours
Mhm.
to type out. So make sure you use a template essentially. So
Yeah, I'll just chip in on that then, Mitch. So I think
yeah,
the reason that using a template is so important is because we've tried to come up with descriptors that are the most common scenario you'd expect to see. A really good example is the ceiling item that you see on the screen at the moment. So ceiling, if you choose a good template, we will pre-populate the description in there to say free of marks, mold, and cobwebs. Now, when you're in the property, if you want to say that it's plastered and painted white, you can add that info in and then maybe clone it because it's often the case that ceilings are white, plastered and painted, and then you just clone that throughout a property, which Mitch will come on to cloning in just a moment. But the importance of having that descriptor in is that when you're in the property, it acts as a sort of as a reminder to the person that's doing the inspection. It also is really useful when it comes to sending the report out to have it signed off by the tenant because it gives them a prompt as to what they should be benchmarking this against. So, you know, rather than it just saying it's a plastered and painted ceiling, by having that templated description in there, which is all part of when you set the property up, as Mitch has just shown you, it means the tenant knows really what they're looking for when they're providing feedback on the report, which is
yeah,
what the paperless process is designed for. Because if the tenant says, "Well, actually, there's a large damp patch in the corner of the room," when they're feeding back, that might be something you then flag for maintenance. So it's good to sort of to give that benchmark for tenants as well, and that's why the templates are so important. And of course, you are going to come up against items in the property that are different to the template. It could be that one of the walls has a hole in it, or a door's got a hole in it. In which case, as Mitch will show you shortly, we have things in the app. There's a button that says clear, so you can quickly clear that whole description and then change it to something that is relevant. But of course, 9 times out of 10, most of these descriptors are going to be relevant to the point you might have to add little or no extra information in.
yeah.
And because, of course, as we all know, that's what kills time when creating an inventory is descriptions and photos. They're a time killer, and hence those are some of the things we wanted to pick apart today during this session.
Yeah. So I'll come on to those now about adding descriptions into your report. So you click into rooms and spaces. Something else you can do as well is when you get to the property is rearrange the order you plan on inspecting the property. So you might get to the property and realize, yeah, the entrance hallway's first, then the kitchen, then the living room. So you can rearrange these rooms. Typically, you start on the ground floor and go clockwise, and then the same on the second floor, etc. So you can rearrange the order if you want to within the app, and then you start in the room and it's listed out the items in this room. If you have a look around the property and then realize there's some items you want to add in the report, you can easily do that. Say, for example, if you click on this button here, it will say add multiple items, and you can type in those items in. So, like a doormat, for example, you might say there's a fire alarm, so you can add those in your report. So you can add those very, very quickly at a quick glance, and then it will prompt you to inspect those. If there's any items in the report you want to remove that aren't in the room, you just hit the delete multiple button, select the ones you want to remove, and they will get deleted out. So adding items and adding and deleting items is very, very simple. So you can, what I do is once you get in the room, have a quick glance around just to check what the list is here matches what you plan and inspect, and then you just go through the items. So you would start with the general overview, and because of the template already provided, it's already typed out a description: clean and tidy, neutral smell, no smoking or pet odors. Instead of scrolling down, you can actually click on these little arrows here, and it collapses down the condition cleanliness sections, the maintenance, the description. So you can click and unclick these to expand if needed. As Richard mentioned, we do provide a can description library which you can choose. So we do see users get very click happy on this, so they might want to click everything on this list and add it in the report. But as you touched upon, Rich, it could be overkill. It might be like I said, slowing down your reporting time, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? With describing items in a property, and the way in which you do it is very much user preference. My personal way of doing it would always be to use a template, and then when I'm in the property, use the voice dictation button.
Yeah.
That for me is the best way to go. However, if I'm on a front door, for example, I'll use the drop downs because you can very quickly say it's a chrome handle, double glazed. And go through it that way. So it is always about user preference. But of course, the
Yeah.
thing that really adds value to reports is making sure that you're clear on the condition and the cleanliness, because that's where disputes arise, as we know. Um,
Just on the voice dictate. So if you do want to use the voice dictation button, when you click into the free tap box, you just hit the microphone in the bottom corner, and you just speak into the app. And as long as you're speaking clearly and you've not slurring your words, then it should recognize what you're saying. So you can use the voice dictation, as Rich mentioned, or the drop down menu here, or you can just free type in the box. So it's
yeah,
your personal preference, really. If you want to highlight anything specific, like clean and tidy, you can highlight it and hit the yellow marker
mhm.
button that highlights it, bold, underline. So you can use those features as well.
It's also Sorry, Mitch, just jumping in. It's also worth
Yeah,
mentioning as well that if you are using voice dictate, if you just scroll back up a little bit on that modal,
yeah,
Mitch, with the bold and stuff, if you say, tap at the end of the sentence like Mitch has just done on odors, and if you wanted to highlight something really specific, if you press the highlighter button when you're on the app, you can press that button and then you can dictate to it, and it will then type in using your voice dictation, and it will highlight the text for you as well. And that's something that's not necessarily obvious unless you've played around with that before, but that is sometimes really useful if you wanted to highlight something really specific, particularly in the general overview, because it gets summarized at the front of the report. Hit that highlight, hit that bold, then dictate to it, and it will type it in using those formatting text tools for you.
So coming on to taking photographs. So we did a slight update a couple of weeks ago with the taking photographs within the app. So now when you take photographs within the app, you might notice two buttons now. So you've got a multi-snap camera or a device camera. And the main differences between these is that the multi-snap camera allows you to take multiple photos in one go, and it slots straight into the app. Or if you want to use the device camera, then you can zoom in and out of a specific item or room using the device camera essentially. So I'll just show you very quickly how that works. So I've hit on the multi-snap. You can then take up to 10 photos of a general overview. And something else to add as well is to make use of those general overview photos, because it will probably save you time taking photos of individual items if there's no problems or deposit disputes or anything like that, really. So that's how easy it is to use the photos. I'll just jump back on the device camera. So when you hit device camera, it will bring up the camera on your iPhone or whatever, and you can zoom out if you want to use the zoom and use that photo.
Yep.
So you can then use the condition cleanliness red, amber, green rating if you want to, and flag any maintenance if you want to. I'm just going to click save and next and go on to the next item. what I'm going to do actually is go to a common item like the ceiling. So I know Richard touched upon cloning items. So what you can do is maybe at the start of an inspection, it's good for, say, radiators or ceilings or light fittings. If you realize 90% of the ceilings in the property are exactly the same, so 9 out of the 10 rooms are all exactly the same, what you can do is populate that description in the first ceiling in the first room and clone it across. So, for example, it's free of marks, mold, and cobwebs, but it might be plastered and painted white, and there are some discoloured paintwork. Just an example. I'll just put some example text in here as well. And if you hit this clone item description button here and hit save and next, that will clone that to all of the ceilings in the property. So if I just jump to another room very quickly, such as the ensuite, and go into the ceiling, you can see that's all copied across ready. So it saves you having to select those descriptions again when you get to that room. But if you get to, say, another room and that isn't the case, such as, say, let me just go to the one of the bedrooms, go to the ceiling, and if it's not plastered and painted white, you can delete that out and then choose the
Mhm.
relevant color, or it might be wallpapered or wood chip papered. So you can copy it across to all of the items in the property, and then just make any minor tweaks. It's good for radiators as well, because it's likely all the radiators are very, very similar or
Mhm.
exactly the same. So that is something that
So
you
in
can do as well.
in a nutshell, you can use the clone tool and then you can override a specific item, providing you don't hit that clone button again, then it won't change all the others moving
Yeah,
forwards. And if you just go back to that room list as well, Mitch.
yeah,
So it's also worth noting as well, because this is sometimes useful. Let's just say, and the way that this is ordered, this is a good example. If let's say all the doors downstairs were the same, and then when you got upstairs all the doors were slightly different, but again the same, you can use clone a second time. So in other words, if I clone from the entrance hallway at the start of the report on the ceiling or the door, it will clone that for the all the rooms below in that list. Sorry, Mitch, if you go back to the entrance hallway.
yeah. So
That's it. Right, no, it's fine, mate.
yeah,
Stay there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so uh, if you choose clone there, it will clone it all the way down in the list. But you can then, when you got to say the bedroom, which is about midway through on this screen, if you use the clone tool again, it will then clone that for all the rooms past that bedroom. I hope that makes sense. Um, so in other words, you can use clone more than once, but it will always clone everything further, everything that you're yet to report on in the list.
So if I just jump to the bathroom again,
Yeah.
ceiling, that should have updated. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly right.
that is particularly useful in certain
Mm,
circumstances, and that's why, in terms of practicalities when you're doing a report, as Mitch has said, obviously it's good to have your property added, with your template in there. But what is also good to do is when you arrive at the property is get your walk around order set. So make sure
yeah,
all your rooms are listed, because then you know that the app is going to take you around each room and space as you go. But then as you go into each room, new room that is, you have a quick look around the room, make sure you don't need to add any new items in, and as a sort of rule of thumb. And then as you start describing, the idea is, of course, that each room becomes easier because you've cloned descriptions from previous rooms that are common throughout the property. And that's why I always like to, when I arrive at the property, I set the walk around order and I just have a quick look around each room as I'm going, because it kind of, in my head, then I'm starting to work out what I can clone and what, as I go. Um, yeah, it's just about working with the app, isn't it, in that respect?
yeah. Something else that you can also do as well that some people might not be aware of is that you can actually clone entire rooms as well. So this is good for, say, bedrooms or en suites that might be very similar, or again 90% the same. So you could come to the first bedroom here. You can type out your descriptions, add in your photos, etc. So if this front door is a hinge door and it's wood panelled with a chrome handle, you can add those in, and what you can do is you can clone that room. And to do that, if I just go back to the room section here, click on the little cog here and click clone room, and you can give it a name. So you can say bedroom number 2, and all of those descriptions and items within that first room will get added to your report at the bottom into a second room. So then it's cloned everything across. But again, it might not be exactly the same, but 90% the same. So you can clone it all across. It might be the same mattress, the same wardrobe in that room, might be the same carpet. So you can clone that and then just make any minor tweaks if applicable.
Yeah. And is it worth mentioning on the photos of that as well, Mitch? If you've
Yeah,
taken photos in a room and described it, and then you clone that room, what does it do with the photos?
it should pull across. So, like I said, once you take your photographs, I would probably recommend updating your photos anyway if you do clone a room, and add some new photos in which are relevant to that room essentially.
Yeah.
Obviously, because you're showing the evidence and the condition cleanliness in that room.
Yep.
If you ever need to flag items for maintenance as well, which obviously a toilet's a common item which you might want to flag for maintenance, and so if you go to the toilet, let's just say the flush is broken. So you can type that in. The flush is broken. What you can do at the bottom is obviously record the condition cleanliness, but flag it for maintenance. We have also got an integration with FixFlow, a free integration with FixFlow. So if you want to learn more about that, get in touch. So what that does is that if you ever flag anything for maintenance in your report, you can then send it directly to your FixFlow account. So if you put approximate cost, the flush is broken, and if you hit the yes button to send to FixFlow, that will go across to your FixFlow account. It's not an integration that is obviously it's widely used, but it's I do come across customers who have got FixFlow but haven't got the integration set up. That integration is free, so do have a look at that, and it will speed up not just your reporting time, but you're looking after your maintenance afterwards as well. But if you do
Yeah.
flag things for maintenance, um, it goes to your maintenance management section on the account anyway. So I'm not sure if I've got any sat there. Let me just go back.
Yeah.
But
It's
on your
just
yeah,
sorry, just while you're doing that, it's probably worth mentioning as well that there's two ways in which you can share maintenance issues with FixFlow. The first way is if a tenant's moving into the property and they provide some feedback on their inventory. So, for example, they say, when I opened the kitchen drawer, it fell off the hinges, or when I turned the shower on, it started to leak. If they feed that kind of information back within their inventory feedback, when you're responding to the tenant's comments, you can say, thanks for raising this, and you can flag it to share with Fixflow at that point,
mm,
which then means you don't have to ask the tenant to input that twice, once on the inventory, once via Fixflow, or in the worst case, it gets missed for 2 or 3 months until you go and do the first inspection. So that's the first way. The second way is when you're actually out in the field, creating an inventory, doing an interim visit, doing a checkout, you can flag it inside the app. And you can also, in our settings area, you can choose how you send those issues to Fixflow. So, for example, you could create one Fixflow ticket for every issue that's flagged within a report, or you could group all those issues into one ticket so that you're not spamming Fixflow. So there's lots of things in the
yeah,
settings. We won't spend too much time on that now, but that
yeah.
gives a bit of context.
Something else that you can also do is, I'm sure some people have seen this on our website as well, is the use of 360 photos. So it is completely optional. Some people prefer taking standard photographs, but I know you're quite a big fan of the 360 photos, Rich. So
Yeah.
um, you can basically, if you've got a compatible 360 camera, you can find these on our website, and we send you directly to one of the 360 camera manufacturers. If you've got a 360 camera, you can effectively pair that with the Inventory Hive app. So what that means is then rather than taking lots of standard photos in the general overview of the room, like I've done here, you can actually add a 360 photo and add that in your report. So if I just add one in here, while I'm doing that, Rich, are you able to say what the key benefits of that, of using
Yeah, of course.
360s?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, personally, I would never do an inventory without using 360 photos now. And the key reason for that is 360s are really great at showing the decor within a room, the location of a smoke alarm, light fittings being present, any general fixtures and fittings or items before and after. You know, 360 photos, don't get me wrong, they're not great for showing close-up detail of maybe, I don't know, there could be a stain on the carpet that you want to show in a specific area. We'd always suggest take a couple of photos of that. Or if you're showing the cleanliness and the condition of an oven, take us some close-up photos of those commonly disputed items. But 360s are fantastic for getting that perspective in a room, because you have to think that in the worst case scenario, if this went to some kind of dispute, that whoever's viewing the report, an adjudicator, say for the TDS, for example, if they were viewing this in a dispute scenario, seeing 5 or 6 general overview photos is not great for getting the perspective of a room. Whereas if you see a 360, it is quite immersive. You can look around the room, you can see that before and after, and that's why I think 360s are really great. And of course, because our app does integrate directly with these cameras, there's no faffing before or after you leave the property, because you connect to the camera there and then. You tag each photo to each room and space there and then inside the property,
Mm.
so that when you leave and you sync things up afterwards, that those photos are there. And then sometimes you might also, at the end of the day, get back and think, oh, damn, I don't think I added that item in a room. That kind of thing does happen, and you can, and if you've got 360s, you can sort of go and proof and check the report. So there's loads of benefits of 360 photos, for compliance, condition, cleanliness. Obviously designed to help avoid disputes at the end of it. And then another
Yeah.
really nice benefit that that I don't think is used as much as it could is that if you've taken 360s in every room of a property when a tenant moves in, you can flip those images out of the inventory and turn them into a virtual tour. There's actually some buttons in the cog that allow you to do that. Now that's really great because um, if I say I'm an inventory company as an example, that's a really nice added value benefit I can offer to clients. We could say, you know, we do a free virtual tour with every inventory. So when that tenant's moving out, you can flip it into a tour. But I mean, that's an aside to the session today, but just something I thought worth mentioning, because like particularly for agents as well in a city centre where they might have a tenant in for 6 months, 12 months, they move out. Sometimes their marketing photos could be 3 years old, whereas if they're using the last inventory, it's a great time to capture 360s, because often there's no furniture in the property, which is obviously good for marketing because it shows more space in the property. That's a useful thing to mention.
Yeah. Something to add as well about 360s, we don't particularly recommend using them for midterm or interim visits, and mainly from a GDPR or infringing on the tenant's personal
Mm.
belongings, like they might have personal photos on the wall or bank statements or doctor's notes on the fridge door that you might capture in a 360. So it's mainly for check-ins and check-outs for um, using 360 images.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think you know that they can be used in that way technically within the app, but like Mitch says, you know, I feel like it's quite an intrusive thing, isn't it? Really, it's a bit
mm,
overkill.
yeah,
Obviously, the idea of an interim, as we all know, is just looking out for any sort of tenancy breaches, make sure the tenant's
yeah,
happy, there's no maintenance issues. Otherwise, yeah, the 360s can be a little bit invasive, perhaps in that way.
yeah. Something else that you can also do, probably not from the app, but mainly easy to do from the desktop site, is attach any pre-arrival documents like you might want to serve to your tenants on move-in, such as like the how to rent guide, a gas safety certificate, EPC. So the whole point behind this is that when the tenant moves into the property, alongside their check-in inventory report, they can also gain access to these documents as well. So although it's easy to attach these documents, it means it saves you having to send them separately on another email or from another platform, when you can easily attach them to your check-in inventory report here. So that is something that you can do.
Yeah.
I'll just delete those out. What should we come on to next? Health and safety alarm compliance. So just on that, you'll notice that when you do your inspection reports, such as the stairway and landing, it's automatically populated in a smoke alarm. But when you capture the condition cleanliness of that photo alarm, you add a photograph in, What you can also do is flag that item as a compliance item as well. So let me just add a photograph of the smoke alarm as well, just to make it nice and tidy. There we go. You'll notice that it's got a date and an expiry date as well. So it's really important to make sure that's ticked, this button here, and populate an expiry date as well. The reason that is that a few months ago, we added in a feature where we'll send you an email notification 1 month before the expiry date to say, hi Mitch or hi Richard, just to let you know the smoke alarm in the stairway and landing of this property is going to expire next month. So it's just more of reminder purposes as well, but it's also good because it embeds that on the report as well.
It's worth noting as well, though, often the expiry dates aren't available, in which
Yeah,
case, if you just leave that field blank, it shows as NA in the final report. So you don't have
yeah,
to put an expiry date in, but where smoke alarms are concerned, you should always put the date that it's tested in there as well, because as you can see on here now, it will summarize it on the health and safety alarm compliance checks as well.
yeah. Also, when you're completing reports, you'll notice that there's a health and safety alarm compliance checklist questions. So some users do answer all of these, some don't. Again, it's personal preference. It depends how you want to work or how in depth you want to go in the report, but you can answer these compliance questions and embed these in your report as well. If you leave them as not applicable, they don't go in your report. And if you want a bit more context about these questions, you can hit these little question marks here, and there's a little bit of context about each one. So you can answer these questions and embed those easily in your report as well.
Super.
And obviously take photos of that as well. Let me just go on to the next screen. Fire door
Sorry,
compliance, mainly for our... Yeah,
sorry, Mitch, to
Carol.
interrupt. Just give me 1 second.
Which is just dipped off somewhere. You can also answer fire door compliance questions as well. If you leave this as no, obviously no questions pop up. If you tick yes, then you can answer fire door compliance questions as well, and they get embedded in your report. But it's mainly for our build to rent, student accommodation, and maybe some HMO customers as well. On the check-in steps here, you can also answer some fitness for human habitation questions, which you can answer and embed these in your reports. Because the questions are simple yes no, it's quite quick to go through and answer these questions. But if you don't want to go into that depth, then you don't need to answer those questions. Again, it's totally up to you, really. What I'm going to show you now is that's just some of the check-in reports. So I'm come on to interim visits as well. So interim visits are probably one of the most used reports on our software. You probably do interim visits probably every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months at the property. What we sometimes come across when people do interim visits is that they kind of like inspect every item very, very granularly, and it's not really something you need to go into much detail on unless you want to flag a maintenance issue, a tenancy breach, or anything other significant. So you'll notice when you set up an interim visit, it's just got the general overview in each room. And the good thing is that if you go into the property and there's absolutely nothing wrong during your interim visit, there's nothing of maintenance, no maintenance issues raised, no tenancy breaches, etc. What you can do is populate that in the first room. So you might say, right, I'm going to scroll down and use the no tenancy breaches, no maintenance issues, and then you can hit the clone button, and that will copy that to every room in the property. So you are utilizing the clone feature very quickly here for an interim visit. So it's already populated that in. But if there is an issue in a particular room that you do want to flag, then you just simply add that specific item. So if I go to the kitchen, for example, and it's populated in, no tenancy breaches, no maintenance issues, but there is one. So I'm going to delete that out, but add the relevant item in. So it might be the oven. So I'm going to populate the oven. And you might want to say the oven does not work, it needs professionally cleaned. You can type that in, obviously populate your photographs, record the condition cleanliness, and flag it for maintenance as well. So it's by design that we don't include every item in an interim visit, because there's no need to inspect every item in such granular detail. So with an interim visit, it will populate the general overview of each room. So if I just preview this report now, it's flagged all the maintenance issues, or the oven are flagged on the very first page, so you can see that at a glance on page number 1. And then as you scroll down, it's got the no tenancy breaches, no maintenance issues of the relevant rooms as well. Anything to add to that, Rich? Are you back, Rich?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm back. Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? When you're doing an
Yeah.
interim, is the golden rule should be in the first room or space you're in, use those two descriptors to say no tenancy agreement breaches, no maintenance issues raised. Clone that through to all the rooms and spaces, and then as you're going round, if the tenant raises an issue, and because you're never really going to be looking out for sort of cleaning an oven as an example, but it might be that the tenant says that the shower's leaking or something like that. Then you can add your item in. You can change the description for that overview. As we were shown before, when you clone, it doesn't mean that you can't change the description of that item in a specific room. You just go in and amend it, and it won't amend all the others. So it's particularly useful when you're doing an interim.
Yeah.
Because it might be that as you go around each room and space, if you're working in offline mode, you could take a quick snap of the overview of each room, if that's what you do. I know some agents, some clerks won't do it in that way because it can be a bit invasive for the tenant, or you just go around and then note any specific maintenance issues and take a snap. So that really, when you're doing an interim visit, there's absolutely no reason that you should have to do it outside of the app if you set things up in the right way, because I think it really helps at the end of a day if you've done everything there and then in the property and you just sync up your information. If you start relying on taking photos outside of the Hive app and then uploading them from the gallery later, it becomes really painful to work out which photo was which room, and that can give you a bit of a headache. So it's always worth tagging things there and then in the property, making sure you use that clone feature effectively, because it really will save you a lot of time.
I've just had a question come in. I know we'll come on to questions later on, but it's relevant
No,
to what
go
we're
for it.
talking about here. So this one's from Sarah. So thanks, Sarah, for this question. And the question is, when we do an interim inspection report, is it best to copy the words from the inventory or to do it blank?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, personally, I would do it blank because really the point of the inventory in many ways, of course, is about comparing it to checkout. So you have that sort of before and end comparison to say this is what it was like before and after. The bit during, I mean, the tenant, it might be that the tenant, is quite untidy, as long as they're not sort of trashing the place and breaching the tenancy, and they haven't caused lots of maintenance issues. Really, that bit in between, I would say, if you were to do it blank, and then Mitch, if you just go back to that entrance hallway again for
Yeah.
this interim, this is our sort of go-to when we're showing people the best way to use the app on an interim. So when you go into this first room and space here, if you just hit clear again, Mitch, on that, so use the cool. So you've cleared all the description. You're in the first room and space. If you hit on that current description drop down, Mitch, scroll down. There's a section in there that refers to interim visit, checkout detail. The first two are the most commonly used ones. So click on those two and then click away. Cool. So in here, you've got no tenancy agreement breaches evident, no maintenance issues raised. Then you hit the clone button and then press save and next. And that will copy that description for all the rooms and spaces for that property, which then means, of course, I mean, you could even do that before you got into the property, for example,
Yeah.
when you sat in the office the day before setting these up, or even sat in the car outside before you go into the property. Because then when you get there, if the tenant says everything's hunky-dory and you look around and you can't see anything, it might be that you're just adding your overview photos in, or adding your close-up snaps. Or it might be the tenant says, oh, look, you know, there's a clearly there's a damp patch coming through on the ceiling in here. You'd then go and you'd add the ceiling into that room by going in the options in the top right corner there, Mitch, adding the
Yeah.
item, and then you then have a nice summative report that has those maintenance issues on the front page, but you've also got something clearly defined for each room and space. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Okay, so checkout reports. Shall I touch briefly on checkout reports, and then we can had quite a few questions in that we'll go through, if that's all right.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, with checkouts, you could spend a whole half an hour session, but I think there's some
Yeah.
really key points to checkouts that are often
Yeah.
overlooked. And the biggest one, as we know, Mitch, which I'm sure you're going to go to now, is something that everybody does, is they will go through each individual item on the app. They'll go
Yeah.
save and next, look at an item, save and next. Now, for me personally, I would never do it that way. The way that I think is best to do it is personally, I always would have the previous inventory saved on my device before I went. Because
Yeah.
then that's just personal preference for me. I like to be able to jump from the app to the previous report. If I looked at the previous report and it said this was a newly refurbished property and everything was immaculate within it, when I go to the property, um, it's a case of having a look around each room and space and then seeing if there are any issues. So I kind of familiarize myself with it. I'd maybe do that in the first few minutes. Then what I would do is I would go into the list of rooms, list of items within a room. So let's say entrance hallway, Mitch, if you just go back on the room bit.
Yeah.
What I would then do is I would say, right, okay, what is the general overview of this room? Is it clean and tidy? Neutral smell like it was at check-in. And if it was, then I wouldn't even tap on the general overview. If you just go back to room, Mitch. What I would do is I would look around the room and see if there was any issues that I was concerned about. Because what you don't need to do is you don't need to go into the app and save and next against each individual item. What you want to do is you're showing differences of before and after. So what was it like when tenant moved in? What's it like when they checked out? Now, if, for example, I noticed there was a large hole in the wall. I mean, it's a simple example. So if you go to wall, what I would do is go to the wall. I would have a look on there and I would say, right, okay, the previous description was free of marks, stains and scuffs, no picture hooks, raw plug and filled holes present. Okay, now if I could see that there was a hole in the wall, I would then go to the description, I would hit the clear button because that will clear it for me nice and quickly. Then I would put my description in and say, this wall is damaged. There's a large hole that wasn't present at checkout. I would add that description in. Just that's fine, Mitch. Yeah, wall's damaged. Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries. And then
Yeah.
what I would then do is scroll down a bit. I would say, okay, it's now, I would say, let's say it's a poor condition, just for argument's sake. Maybe the cleanliness is fair. And then I would say, I would flag the item status. So I quickly say, item needs repairing. Um, leave the rest of it for the time being, Mitch. The
Yeah.
responsibility status, I mean, just to be clear as well for everybody, the responsibility, the cost, you could leave that blank at this stage. You can make a view on that, later on when you're back at the office. But then you can also decide here, yes, if you want to send it to Fixler or not, that's fine. But the most important bit then is if you include this item in the report, you check that and then hit save and next. So basically what I've done there is if everything else in that room was fine, I don't need to then go through each item individually in that room. It's about looking visually and being aware of what it was like before the tenant moved in. And you don't always have to do that inside the app if you've looked at the previous report. So go to rooms and spaces again, Mitch, please.
So I'm just showing the preview of that report. I've just showing now we've
Yes, sorry.
included that item in the report. It's got the previous description and the current description, or so it only shows that thing in the report. Because, like Rich said, you don't want the adjudicator or the landlord, tenant, or whoever to look through a really detailed report with 70 pages long when there's only two things of significance you want to highlight. So the only things you need to highlight in the report or include are just the things you want to highlight, really. So
Yeah, that's it. You only want to be showing things that have changed. It's
yeah,
worth noting that that some agents, some inventory clerks will like to show the overview of each room because it does give perhaps the landlord peace of mind that the rest of the room is fine, or I have checked each room and space. In which case, to do that, all you do is go back into entrance hallway, please, Mitch. Kitchen. So where you've got your general overview at the top there, the top of the list, you could just go into here, and then you could just put a nice comment perhaps and say that everything was fine and dandy and that you checked it. Um, you wouldn't use those words, of course,
yeah,
um, but the main thing is where it's got the bottom there. Include this item in the report. If you check that, it will then make sure that that shows in the final report, and that's really the biggest mistake people make in terms of time and efficiency when they're doing a checkout is they will literally show every single item in the report, which is I think it can make it it's a bit pointless really because you're not actually
mm,
showing any change. If you want to make the point that you've checked a room, then yeah, put that in the overview and then check that the little button at the bottom of that
yeah,
modal to show it in the report. But really, your checkout should be showing differences, items of concern,
yeah,
or flagging maintenance issues along the way. So that I think is perhaps the most important thing to cover off in terms of time
yeah,
for today, because I'm
yeah,
conscious we've got 10 minutes left. So
yeah. Shall I go through some questions that have come in?
go for it. Let's do it. Yeah.
Um, so, why does the app limit you to 10 photos per room? So it's a common question, and I think you will know the answer to this, but I
Mhm.
think there's a point of how many photos is too many photos. Would you agree?
Yeah, so what we do is it's not so you have 10 photos for the overview of each room and space, but you then have 8 photos for every single item in the report. And the reason, of course, we do that is because really an overview photo should be stand in all 4 corners of the room, maybe turn the lights on and get some general perspective of the room. Um, I think from an adjudicator's perspective, and obviously we work really closely with the TDS, having relevant photos is of course useful in the event of a dispute, but they're not at the expense of the written word. I think if somebody's spending lots of time taking photos, then it suggests that they may be overlooking the description side of it and having reliable, valuable descriptions. I think there are always exceptions to a rule. For example, I think sometimes when you're doing kitchen units, you could possibly do with more than 8 photos. And it, to be honest, there's a slight workaround for that at the moment. You just add another kitchen unit on and add more photos. But if you clone
Mm,
that description from the previous one, it is pretty quick to do that. And again, for me, that's why I always rely on 360 photos, because they're really simple to add into the report. That a 360 photo can save you adding, 20 standard photos. It is personal preference, but it's about having a balance really. And if you're taking, for example, let's say we gave users the ability to have 30 photos. If you're taking 30 photos of an overview and then 8 photos of every single item, then that's gonna sap a lot of time. Um,
yeah,
but I mean, if whoever's put that question in, if they've got any specific scenarios, or there's something that's really bothering them about that, then of course we're always reviewing and looking at these things. And that's where we said at the start of this webinar that there's an
yeah.
email address at info@inventoryhive.co.uk. If you want to raise that a little bit further afterwards, we're always open to discussing any ideas for
Yeah.
improving the software. You can always put them through to info@inventoryhive.co.uk. That's where most of our updates come from, is by user suggestions, uh, as well as us, throwing a bit of innovation in here and there along the way. But yeah, if anybody wants to pick that up further, then please do drop us an email to that one.
Had a question come in saying, do you have any block management templates or can you do block inspections? So not many people are aware of this, but on Inventory Hive, um, it's a free feature, and we call it custom reports. So if you go to the settings section on the account, and on the left hand side, there's something called custom reports. And we've provided some off the shelf templates for, say, block management inspections, fire door inspections, HMO compliance reports. So what you can do is we provided these templates, but you can tweak them if you want to. So what you can do is if I just clone this one very quickly and publish it.
Yeah, just while Mitch is doing that as well, we are going to be running a session on custom reports over the next
Yeah,
month or two,
yeah,
because yeah, we've got a lot of sort of off-the-shelf templates ready there and then, and they're super easy to use in the software, and you can customize them so you can
yeah,
create your own questions, your own RAG ratings, you know, with sort of high, low, medium risk,
yeah,
with photo opportunities in there, note sections. They're dead simple to create. And we are going to run a
yeah.
specific session on that.
So if you want to create a custom report or block management inspection, for example, you hit add custom report and then choose the report from the drop down. So I should have oh, I've not published it, but
That's all
you
right.
can
Just
see
choose
here, yeah,
anyone.
yeah.
Yeah,
So here's the Legionella risk report. You click save and next, and you just go through answering these questions, and that will generate a report essentially. So as well as block management, you can create Legionella risk, basically your own custom report essentially, and that will get added onto the software, and you can embed those against the relevant property.
yeah,
Um,
and they are nice and simple to use in the app as well when you're working in an
yeah,
offline state with your yes/no questions and create your own subsections in the report. It's dead simple, but we will run a session on that separately.
yeah. When can you take out of the checkout report the cloning button? As sometimes I clone it by mistake. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So,
Wondering.
okay. So if you're cloning a description and you're kind of on
Yeah,
autopilot, yeah,
yeah,
I actually think that's a nice idea. And one of the things that I really want to look at with the team at the moment is how we can maybe show or hide certain buttons in general. So, for example,
yeah,
if you've never used a 360 camera and you hate using 360 cameras for whatever reason, it's each to their own. Why should we show you that button in the app if you're never going to use it? So, I actually think there are some features in there that we could show or hide. I think the problem we have sometimes is obviously if we hide that for one user, another user might love using that when they do checkout. So it is about striking a balance. But whoever suggested that, again, if you want to send us sort of an email to info@inventoryhive.co.uk,
yeah,
that kind of thing, or we want to hear about the things that annoy users or frustrate them because we want to put them
yeah,
right. So, but it's a valid point.
yeah. We've had loads of questions come in, so I know who exactly they've come from. So what we might do is go back to each of these ones individually throughout the week, so we can do that. Another question that has come in is there any more integrations in the pipeline?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, yes, there's going to be a big push this year on integrations in general. What I would say on that as well is if there's anybody specific that you're looking for us to integrate with, then again, drop us an email to info@inventoryhive.co.uk. As I say, we've got lots of integrations in the pipeline. In some cases, we've probably already started them. If it's one that we haven't, we've actually got some interesting conversations underway about how we can do lots of integrations maybe quickly. So we're always looking at and also, of course, it really helps when we're looking to integrate with another system if we've got a customer that's asking their CRM to do it for us or introduces us, because if it's customer led, then it usually pushes some of those integrations along, particularly if it's one that we maybe haven't started a conversation with yet.
Yeah. Very last one. It's just popped up and said, will we be at any conferences this year? So we do exhibit at the majority of property market conferences, EA Masters, National Residential Landlord shows. So we will be there. If you do see us there, just pop along, say hello, and it's always good to put faces to emails. So lots of questions. What I'll do is we'll pass these on to the support team and the info team, and we'll respond to these questions throughout the week. Any final words, Richard, before we wrap up?
No, just thanks to everybody for coming along. As I say, we've got a really exciting roadmap ahead this year. We've got a huge project landing in a few months from now, which we've been working on behind the scenes. But again, if there's anything that really annoys you or you really like, then don't be a stranger. You drop us an email because that's really important to us that we listen to feedback and respond to things, which of course we'll be doing.
Yeah. No, appreciate everyone's time. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, the usual. And like I said, any questions, info@inventoryhive.co.uk, or if you have any technical questions, support@propertyreporting.co.uk. And as Rich mentioned, we're always happy to help, hold your hand. And our support ticket response is usually Monday to Friday between 9 and 5, under 10 minutes. So we're really proud of the support we offer, and we're excited for the year. But yeah,
Yeah,
thanks to everyone today. Yeah, thank you again.
great stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mitch, as well for putting it
Thank
together.
you.
Great,
No
great
problem.
job as always, mate. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.